2.5 years ago, I made a simple mistake that nearly cost me my life.
Hey, welcome back to my channel. So wanted to dig right into this and talk about this emergency surgery accident that I had. After this happened, I made a video pretty quickly after 2.5 years ago. You can check that out as well if you are interested to see just my raw thoughts and everything directly after the incident. But now that it's been 2.5 years and I've had so much time to think about this, and I've also just done so many different things, I've lived in different states, I've had different jobs, I have recovered, and all these other things, I wanted to just remake a video about this incident. So without any further ado, let's set the scene. So I was in Durango, Colorado. I had been actually in that area for a bit of time, trying to make YouTube videos, actually mainly travel and adventure, but I also do a lot of fitness oriented things. So this particular video, I was along the river. I had done some swimming in the Animas River by Durango, and I also was doing some parkour training. For me, the parkour training consisted of acrobatics. I was doing some backflips and some other different movements, and one of my biggest things that I like to do is balance training. I've done it for years. All sorts of different balance training, walking, running, and maneuvering on metal rails has always been one of my favorite aspects of parkour training, and I got really good at it. So, this incident really just goes to show that you can be really good at something, but one mistake can really be consequential. So as I was balancing on this metal rail, I somehow slipped. Somehow my foot slipped. That's all I remember. And I came crashing down, and basically I split my legs on the metal rail, and ultimately it caused a blockage in my urethra. But at that point, all I knew was that something really, really bad had happened. I remember trying to get up. I was in so much pain, and I just knew that I was in a severe condition. Obviously I had to figure out, what things looked like. So after taking a look, it definitely looked very severe and very scary. And at that point, I maneuvered over to my vehicle on my own in a very painful and severe condition. I did call 911 at that point, or I might have called the hospital, and they asked if I needed an ambulance. And at that point, I was already in the vehicle, and I was just trusting my instincts. I pretty much told them that I don't think I can wait for an ambulance. So I actually drove over 20 miles to the Durango hospital. I show up to the hospital. There's blood dripping down my leg. It was really bad. I remember just kind of going through the process of trying to explain the severity of what I was going through to this lady that was behind this glass, was it like a wall, almost glass wall, where she's trying to take my information, and it felt so surreal, like she couldn't see all the blood dripping down my leg. And finally she was able to realize that I was really in a pretty severe condition, and I ended up getting brought into a room, but there was not any hospital beds available. I had to wait a very significant amount of time. It actually ended up being over 6 hours waiting for a hospital bed to open up. If you can imagine, like I said, I had a blockage. Ended up having a full bladder where I had to use the bathroom. It's hard for me to even describe, honestly, just how much pain I was in. I feel like I've been through some hard things in my time, for sure. This was by far the scariest. It was by far the most painful. I recall trying to ask nurses as they were coming in and out, as I was waiting for this hospital bed to open. I remember just trying to ask them, am I going to be okay? I mean, that was kind of just the natural thing that just came out of my mouth. I was concerned, and I didn't know what was going on. And I'm not trying to criticize these nurses or anything. I'm very grateful for them. But at the time, I was very scared. There was one nurse in particular that came in, She didn't speak English as far as I could see. And she was kind of freaking out, is all I can really describe it. There was a lot of blood that was dripping off my leg and down from the bed onto the floor. And I tried to ask her if I was going to be okay, and I could tell that she didn't speak any English. And she honestly just kind of started freaking out, and then she left. And then a few minutes later, another nurse came in, and I was still just trying to ask if I was going to be okay. That's pretty much all I was asking. Am I going to be okay? Am I going to be okay? And I remember this nurse looked right at me and said, I'll be honest, I don't know if you're going to be okay. And I think that's when it really, I guess, sunk. Like, I think like I was like trying to hold on to this like hope that like maybe this wouldn't, you know, be as bad as it seems. Like I knew I had to use the bathroom, but I couldn't. I was in severe pain and I didn't know how bad it was. And I think when she said, at that moment, you know, she said, I don't know if you're going to be okay. Like there was no, and I'm not trying to blame her or anything. I know she was just doing her job. And I know that at that point she did not have enough information to give me about whether or not I was going to be okay. But it was like at that moment when she said, I actually don't know if you're going to be okay, that I guess I really started to lose hope at that point, because I think I was trying to hold on to this hope that maybe it wasn't quite as bad as it seemed or something like that. And at that point, I still had not actually tried to contact my family. I was very nervous about that. I mean, I was obviously very overwhelmed with just the situation and what I was dealing with. And I was thinking a lot about my family. To give you an idea, if you haven't been following me, I was nowhere close to my family. I mean, this happened in Colorado. I had been traveling freely around the country trying to make these outdoor adventure videos, and I had been living in Texas as well, working some jobs down there. None of my family lives anywhere close to Colorado or Texas, or really any of the spots that I was at. They're in Massachusetts and North Carolina. I tried calling my brother. Well, I think I tried calling my parents first. They normally would have picked up the phone for sure, but strangely enough, on this particular day, they were not able to answer the phone. I think they were camping in an area that didn't have cell service, so they were unable to pick up the phone. And then I did try to call, I guess, my little brother and my big brother. I don't know which order, but I remember trying to call my little brother, and I didn't get any response. I mean, he works as a really busy job at night, and he wasn't able to pick up the phone. And then I finally got through to my big brother. I don't know if it was text or phone call, or if he called me after he saw a text. I'm not really sure. This is my brother here, my brother Mike. You know, we have certain commonalities in the fact that we both served in the Army. He's a combat veteran from the 82nd Airborne Paratrooper. And you know, I remember when I first started talking to him, like, I definitely remember being really scared. And I'm sure that probably is what I was communicating to him. But at the same time, I remember trying in some way, maybe not to downplay what happened, but I think in some way I also didn't want to make anyone in my family overly concerned about me. You know, that's why it took me so long to consider the idea of trying to call. But, you know, eventually I do remember saying the words to my brother, Mike, like, hey, Mike, this is really bad. Like, I don't know what's going to happen. I remember saying things like that several times. I remember telling him that I had to use the bathroom and that I was really concerned. And I think I even said things like, I don't know if I'm going to be okay. And again, this is like after hearing from several nurses that they did not know the prognosis, and one nurse in particular saying she didn't know if I was going to make it or whatever, if I'm going to be okay. And it was at that point that I remember, like, I could tell that my brother was nervous too, but he was keeping it together, which is what I needed. Like, I could tell there was like a bit of, he wanted to know what was going on, and I probably was not doing a good job of really even communicating because I was in this situation where I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So he was trying to get those details out of me. But I think when I finally was able to explain to him that I really was in a severe state at that moment and I did not actually know if I was going to be okay, that's when I remember the tone of voice changing with my brother. And he started to become, how do I say it? Like, very responsive in a way that I needed to hear at that exact moment. He started to say things like, no, Brian, no, you are going to make it. He was like that. He's like, Brian, you can do this. Brian, he's like, you were an infantry officer. You went through Ranger school. And like when he was saying that, you know, I think it did trigger different memories. Here's an image of, you know, my brother went down to my ceremony to see me get my blue cord. He pounded my airborne wings into my chest. I think some of those memories popped up in my mind. And even though I knew that the pain that I was actually experiencing at that moment, as well as how scared I was at that moment, was actually worse, to be honest, than anything that I experienced at infantry basic officer leaders course, Ranger school, or just anything else. This was worse. This was like, I was really scared and I really didn't know if I was going to make it. But he just kept reinforcing this idea, you know, that he's like, you are going to make it. You are going to be okay. He kept saying, Brian, you are tough. You can make it. You can make it. And yeah, that's okay. So eventually, you know, I get a hospital bed. I think it was actually the subsequent days, honestly. So I go through surgery. I recall, you know, waking up. Honestly, some of the toughest experiences from this were actually after. So like, you know, I was obviously very grateful that like I made it, in terms of like, I made it through this surgery. I eventually got a hospital bed. Then I ended up having to live with a catheter for a series of weeks. So I was not able to use the bathroom on my own. I ended up driving all the way across the country. I did have to get follow-on care at the VA down in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Spent some time there, and then I ultimately decided to travel across, you know, the country to Massachusetts, where I ended up getting more treatment as well at the Boston VA. So I would say actually the most painful experiences, you know, I made it all the way across the country. I drove about 500 miles per day to make it all the way to Boston. One thing I wanted to note, you know, because I've made some videos about DoorDash and food delivery services, and I'm not trying to like criticize people that order those services or anything like that, but I guess for me, I've always been into trying to get extra exercise. Like you see me out here walking. I like to walk and run if I can, not just driving, but I'd rather like get the food myself. And that was the first time that I used DoorDash to actually order food. When I made it to the hotels, I had done so much driving, and it really dawned on me at that point. I had always had it in my mind that I would never want to pay for a service like DoorDash, but I guess I will say that like I was really, really grateful when they brought food to me at the hotels, the DoorDash drivers, and that's a job I had done when I was doing my road trips as a photographer for a while. So definitely, it's just one of those things where I was like, I never actually thought I was going to order food, and then I was in a position. So, you know, I ended up pulling through and making a recovery. Had to get a lot of different appointments and a lot of different checkups, and some pretty painful appointments, honestly, where they had to do various things to look into what was going on with my urethra. But ultimately, I did make a full recovery from this, and you know, I decided to continue on and set new goals for myself. I definitely changed certain things that I was doing. There were probably different times that I was taking too much risks with things like parkour and balancing. I used to like to balance on, you know, rails and swing sets and different things that were way above the ground. And honestly, I never thought that something like this would happen. I made a simple mistake. I guess this is just a reminder that, you know, you can be really good at something and you could still make a very, very simple mistake, because I had done a lot of things that would have been considered a lot more risky or a lot more dangerous than how I slipped. You know, I used to jump these rails all the time. You know, this is me jumping these rails that were way above the ground, much higher than how I slipped. So I never would have thought that I would have slipped in the way that I did, because I just felt like, honestly, I was really, really good at that one thing, balancing and even walking, running, and jumping on metal rails. So just wanted to let you guys know that accidents can happen at any time. And just, I'm really grateful for, you know, everybody who helped me during my time, you know, especially my brother on the phone, who really gave me the encouragement that I needed, and my family and friends and everyone who supported. So wanted to thank you for watching this video, and I hope that you're able to take something out of this. And if you're going through like a tough scenario or anything where you think that you're not going to make it, I just want to give you encouragement if I possibly can. I want to let you know that you're stronger than you think you are. I want to let you know that you know, that anything is possible if you put your mind to it. And you know, I know it sounds cliche, but you know, you can always go one more. You can always do one more, and you can do it. And I hope that this video inspires somebody, motivates someone. So thank you for watching. And if you took anything from this video, I hope you subscribe for more.